Imagine buying a multi-million-dollar piece of farm equipment, only to find out that when it breaks down, you're not allowed to fix it. For thousands of farmers, this is a reality they must face, courtesy of John Deere. Once hailed as the go-to name in agriculture, John Deere is now locking farmers into an expensive, frustrating cycle where they can't even repair their own machines without paying hefty fees or waiting on costly dealership repairs. Is this just good business? Or corporate greed at its worst? Let's dive into how John Deere has turned farming independence into farmer dependence. John Deere's journey to fame started in the early 19th century when their founder revolutionized farming with the self-scouring steel plow. Their reputation grew as they built reliable, durable machinery that earned farmers' trust. For over a century, farmers could buy from John Deere and freely repair and modify their equipment. But in the last few decades, new technologies have emerged, both a boon and a bane for their new masters. Around the turn of the millennium, John Deere began incorporating proprietary software systems into their machinery. This allowed them to make GPS-guided tractors, automated combines, and precision farming tools, revolutionizing the agricultural industry. Yields increased, waste reduced, and farmers could now manage their fields with accuracy the likes of which had never been seen before. It sounds amazing, right? Surely, this is what everyone wanted. Unfortunately, this chapter has no happy ending. The software that allowed these technological advancements became a point of contention. Only John Deere or its authorized technicians could access the software, so the company had effectively positioned itself as the sole gatekeeper to the technology, which allows for many to earn their livelihood. The result? They hold a near monopoly over the agriculture industry. So, how do they exert such control with the software, you may ask? The answer: by creating software locks. Let's use the example of tractors. When repairing one of these, new parts need to not only be physically connected to the tractor, but must also be electronically integrated into the system to ensure they function. Only John Deere and their authorized dealers can open these software locks, so farmers cannot repair their own equipment. But that's not all. In some cases, it may not even be possible to physically repair the tractor because customized tools are required for some of the repairs, and manuals will be necessary to understand the equipment. Both are also withheld by Deere & Company. Farmers are being forced to travel to John Deere authorized dealerships and service centers to perform what may just be a simple repair. As a result, they lose time in both traveling to and waiting for the dealership to become available, as well as money, paying for the services and potentially even losing their crops as the optimal harvest period ends. But not all can afford these fees, so some end up becoming hackers, using software and tools they found online to diagnose and repair their equipment. Others are buying older tractors which still function and are more repairable than new models, but repairs don't come cheap if few are still making the parts. With the first option comes the risk of being caught and fined, or potentially even serving time in prison. When funds are scarce, neither option sounds great. At one town hall meeting of the Montana Farmers Union, the union's president, Walter Schweitzer, shared his experiences from this situation. In the summer of 2020, he started having problems with his new tractor. Having neither the necessary hardware or software prevented him from figuring out the error code to fix the tractor by himself, so he was forced to send it back to his dealer for repair. Whilst it turned out the repairs were simple and only would have been about $800 had he done it himself, the dealer obviously charged extra for workers, holding space, and freight, resulting in a $5,000 bill. Had Schweitzer been able to buy the software, it would have saved him much money then and in the long term. He is just one of many farmers losing a lot of money due to the greed of John Deere and other giants in the agriculture industry. Another farmer interviewed by Vice was able to demonstrate the attitudes of the company towards their customers. Jared Wilson is a farmer from Missouri who one day discovered that the air conditioning in his tractor was not functioning as he was about to plant his soybean crop. While the tractor could run, sitting in it was unpleasant to say the least. He He described it as a baking hot, closed-glass sauna atop a huge hot engine in the heat of the Missouri spring. When he called the local John Deere dealership for an appointment, the manager told him that he wasn't a profitable customer. Now, why might that be? It turns out that Wilson is both a highly articulate critic of John Deere and a vigorous campaigner for a legal right to repair. Only after he filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission about the dispute did they accept doing business with him. A survey was conducted by the U.S. PIRG Education Fund and the National Farmers Union, involving 53 farmers across 14 states, and was released in early 2023. At that point, individual farmers were losing an average of $3,348 per year to repair restrictions and downtime due to the limitations put in place by equipment makers. It was estimated that if every farmer in the U.S. faced similar losses, these restrictions would cost U.S. producers more than $3 billion a year. The situation will not ease anytime soon either. According to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, repair costs for farmers have almost doubled over the past 2 decades. As the situation becomes more dire, farmers grow anxious, constantly worrying about their future. Those whose livelihoods could be considered safe draw closer to the brink of loss. The ones on the border between success and failure fall into the pit, and those already in the pit descend deeper into loss. Facing the stress of repair costs, downtime, and even the solvency of their farm means that farmers need just as much mental resilience as physical strength if they wish to keep their lands. For such independent people, it's frustrating to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this equipment and be forced to adjust themselves to the schedules of others, being unable to completely own their equipment and to fix it themselves. Waiting days or sometimes even weeks for the repairman to be free can be torture, as they are forced to watch their crops, the very meaning of their lives, wither away in front of them and be unable to save them. They have also consistently voiced concerns of their tractors being shut down. We've seen this before in the Ukraine-Russia war, when Russian looters stole 27 pieces of John Deere equipment worth about $5 million from a dealership in Melitopol. The kit was shipped to Chechnya, where a nasty surprise awaited the crooks. Overnight, their shiny new vehicles had become the world's heaviest paperweights once the dealer remotely disabled them using an inbuilt kill switch. Many found this amusing, but it would only have raised hollow laughs from farmers. Whenever farmers hack into their machinery to repair it, there's a risk that the company sends a kill signal to the tractors they believe to be violating the end-user license agreement. But we know that once something is on the internet, there's always a risk of it being hacked. Anyone with the capabilities could remotely disable interconnected devices. If on a large enough scale, the United States' food security and economy may even be affected. In response to such restrictive policies, the Right to Repair campaign was launched decades ago, aiming to provide farmers with the autonomy and ability to repair equipment, such as tractors, themselves or at other independent centers. Over the last few years, it seemed that the tractor maker was willing to make concessions, having signed an agreement with the American Farm Bureau in January 2023. This deal promised farmers easier access to tools and software needed to repair their own equipment, in exchange for farmers withholding their support for bills concerning repairs and software of machinery. However, Right to Repair advocates said that the agreement ultimately changed little for the farmers, raising only a few good points. One farmer interviewed by Wired called it a Groundhog Day sort of thing, a repeat of something he has seen before. The memorandum is similar to one signed in 2018 by the California Farm Bureau, the state's largest organization for farmers' interests, and the Equipment Dealers Association, which represents Deere. The 2023 agreement was also non-binding and only resulted in the involved companies releasing customer diagnostic tools for annual subscriptions ranging from $1,500 to $3,100. However, these left much to be desired, requiring customers to go through extra steps compared to Deere-approved repair centers in order to accurately diagnose issues and clear codes once the repair is complete. The inferior tool was unable to meet the farmer's demands, So eventually, right-to-repair advocates were able to have bills passed, with the state of Colorado being the first to enact the Consumer Right to Repair Agricultural Equipment Act in May of that year. Later that year, in November, a U.S. district judge rejected Deere's effort to dismiss consolidated lawsuits accusing the company of violating U.S. antitrust law, since the plaintiffs had met legal thresholds to pursue their claims. The complaint stated that farmers are, quote, prevented from using trusted, less expensive, and more conveniently located skilled mechanics who are not affiliated with Deere, unquote. Of course, Deere would not give in without a fight. In response, their lawyers argued that only a small subset of repairs must be done at Deere-authorized dealerships. The company told the court that it has never hidden that some repairs require the company's dealers because federal antitrust law does not require, quote, Deere to give all of its proprietary repair tools and software to anyone who happens to want them. Other reasons they have given at various points include farmers having access to the full computer systems being a security risk that could result in federal law being broken, an increased likelihood of cyber attacks on equipment, and emissions tampering, whether this is intentional or accidental. Farmers are not the only group impacted by their monopolistic practices. There have been concerns about their anti-competitive behavior, particularly concerning agreements they sign with dealers and their network. Often, these include exclusivity clauses, which prevent dealers from selling or servicing competing brands of agricultural equipment. Add to this the fact that in many rural areas, farmers only have one local John Deere dealer capable of servicing their John Deere machinery. It's no surprise that the fees are expensive and service is not quick, seeing as they have no competition. If farmers end up dissatisfied with their local John Deere dealer, they have no alternative but to travel far to find another one, costing them more time and money. The agriculture equipment giant has essentially forced farmers to be dependent on them, locking them into the John Deere ecosystem the moment they buy from Deere. Smaller companies cannot take hold of larger portions of the market, for this task has been made nearly impossible thanks to the groundwork laid by John Deere over the last few decades. But they are not alone. Since the turn of the millennium, a small number of large corporations have been dominating key sectors of the agriculture industry, such as seed production and the fertilizer industry. Without new legislation being passed, there won't be an end to the monopoly that John Deere and other companies have created over the agriculture industry. It seems that the situation will only grow tougher for farmers.